Hello! Many of you know me for book, but you may not know I also sports. Specifically, stop laughing. It's not funny. I didn't make you click on this video. But because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, my team plays Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles twice a year. Sometimes they win, sometimes we almost win, but every year after the game is over, I stick around for the post-game interviews because I want to hear from this man, Jalen Anthony Hurts. Why? I want to hear a Jalenism. Jalen Hurts has these one-liners that he gives in interviews, and I can't lie, they're pretty cool. Most of them are super cool. He'll be like, the rocks that pushed us down yesterday's mountain have become the diamonds at the top of today's mountain. Losing is like pistachios. I hate pistachios. Some days you wake up and you got a pet horse and you have... I don't know why I felt the need to record these. I recorded like 6 of them. I can just show you what I'm talking about.
I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion. I know y'all like that one.
Money is nice, championships are better.
The reality is, just because we don't mean we can't.
Rain, sleet, snow, the Eagles train to go.
I know I've walked through the fire time and time again, and in the end, it's always made me stronger. You may not know now, but later you'll understand. Hopefully people understand.
He's like if DJ Khaled lost 500 pounds and was smart. Also, his middle name is Alexander, not Anthony, and if you didn't catch that, you're a fake fan. Some people will say, Jonathan, you're just using deception to make yourself feel better than Eagles fans. And those people are correct. That's exactly what I'm doing. You probably noticed a couple things about these quotes. First of all, fine, yeah, they're cool, okay? I'll give it to you. But second, these one-liners, he technically answers the question while managing to give us almost no information about the game of football. Let me give you a really good example of what I'm talking about.
Being steady-handed in late game situations, Jalen, is that something that you innately have, or is that something that you kind of forge over time?
That's the question the reporter asks, and that question gets at the heart of every question in every athletics interview ever, pretty much, which is, what's it like, and how did you do it? Because you and me, I'll tell you, I, believe it or not, am not declaring for the NFL draft this year, okay? I make book videos on the internet. I lost a fight with a bag of chips yesterday. I'm aware of what I am. Listen to Jalen's response.
Just think experience is the biggest teacher. You know, and I think that's for y'all to decide truly.
Athletes love saying things like this. They love it. And it's not just Jalen. Sorry for clickbaiting. I could give you an hour-long compilation of athletes giving answers to questions that answer the question on the surface, but miss like the emotional, ideological heart of the question. So I wanted to talk about why do they do that? What's up with that? In researching for this video, I came to the conclusion that there's actually a lot more going on here than meets the surface, but to clearly communicate that, I need to tell you a story that you've probably heard before. Jalen Hurts is from Channelview, which is a suburb of Houston. He played football at Channelview High, where his dad was the head coach, and from a very young age, he was an insane person. He was a very accurate passer, he was crazy fast, but also he squatted 500 pounds as a sophomore. This was me as a sophomore, for context. Out of high school, he was considered a top 5 recruit in the country. He got a lot of attention from big schools, but he ended up committing to, at the time, the most prestigious program in all of college football, the University of Alabama. Fast forward to his sophomore year of college. He's the starter, but in the offseason, Alabama went out and they got a backup for him. 18-year-old freshman out of Hawaii named Tua Tagovailoa. This guy is important. I know people make fun of him now, but he's very important to this story. Jalen tears it up in his sophomore year. 12 wins, 1 loss. He takes them all the way to the national championship, which is played in Atlanta, Georgia, against the University of Georgia. In the first half of this game, Jalen Hurts completes 3 out of 8 pass attempts. I don't know how many people watching this video clicked on it because they're Jalen Hurts fans or because they just watch all my videos, but for those of you who don't know, that's not good. That is very bad. Georgia's defense is putting Jalen Hurts in a blender. Halftime comes, Alabama is down 13-0. In the locker room, Nick Saban, greatest coach in the history of college football, pulls Jalen Hurts aside. That tells him, we're benching you. And Jalen goes, what do you mean? What do you mean you're benching me? And Nick Saban goes, we're playing Tua, freshman, 18 years old, fresh out of high school, because we think he gives us a better chance to win this game than you do. So the second half of this game starts. Jalen Hurts sits down on the bench and watches his team march down the field and score. And then score again. And then score a third time. And with 1 second remaining in regulation, he watches them kick a game-tying field goal to send it to overtime. In overtime, Alabama gets the ball. Tua takes the snap, drops back to pass. He lets it go for 41 yards. Touchdown, game over. Jalen Hurts watches from the bench as the team that he spent the last 2 years leading wins a national title without him. Next year comes. Jalen stays at Alabama. Tua's the starter now. Jalen's on the bench. Tua is doing everything that Jalen Hurts used to do, but he's doing it better. They go 13-0. They go to the SEC Conference Championship. Winner goes to the playoffs. Loser goes home. Guess who they're playing? University of Georgia. First 3 quarters of this game are close. Bama scores 3 touchdowns, but Georgia scores 4. And in the fourth quarter, down 21-28, Tua gets hit. Blows up his ankle. He's going back to the locker room. He's out of the game. Guess who comes off the bench in the SEC Championship against the team that put him in a blender to replace him? Batman? No. Were you not paying attention this whole time? I was kind of building up to something. You kind of play the clip.
I got 100 on my dash, got 200 in my trunk. Name in the grab bags, put my Bible in the trunk. Like a rocker on the top of my binocular trunk.
Jalen gets the football. 5 minutes later, game is tied. Georgia gets it back. Defense holds. They punt it. Bama has the ball. Tie game. Minute 47 left in regulation. Jalen completes a pass over the middle. Next play, runs into the end zone. 35-28. Alabama wins the SEC championship. And as confetti is literally still on the field, they shove a microphone in Jalen Hurts' face and they ask him this.
Jalen, on the go-ahead touchdown, I wonder if you could just take us through what was supposed to happen. Was it a run all the way? Whatever its situation was, and then ultimately you got in the end zone.
Well, I had an option to, had to find my movement key and see who would trigger the decision I'd make. And, my guy went out, so I took it in and had really good open lanes and found a way to get in the end zone.
That's it. That's his response. That's all he says. Now, I'm watching this at home. I'm like 17 at the time, and I'm going, Jalen, we watched the game. We don't need a play-by-play. That's not what they're asking. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. These athletes who are not stupid, who very clearly understand their game very well, better than almost anybody else in the world, really struggle in articulating the one thing that's most compelling to us, to the rest of us, the mortals. How did you do it, and what's it like? I'm going to quote David Foster Wallace, because you may have forgotten, this is still a book channel. This comes from an essay called How Tracy Austin Broke My Heart, where he's expressing a very similar idea about this, about like tennis and stuff. Real indisputable genius is so impossible to define, so rarely visible, that we automatically expect people who are geniuses as athletes to be geniuses also as speakers and writers, to be articulate, perceptive, truthful, profound. With that framing, the answer seems obvious. They're just not very good at talking about it. Obviously, when you think about it, it would be stupid to assume that LeBron and Tiger Woods and Jalen Hurts all happen to be unbelievably gifted in their specific sports and in talking about those specific sports in a way that we find insightful and compelling and easy to understand. But I actually think it goes a little bit deeper than that. Here's a hypothesis. What if none of this is true? I've been making the case that athletes speak like this just because they're just not very good at describing what it's like and how they do it. But what if that's not true at all? See, that claim rides on the assumption that there actually is more to the story here, more going on, more beneath the surface than just the phrase, rain, sleet, or snow, Eagles train to go. And that Jalen Hurts either won't or can't let us in on it. But what if it is that simple? What if the phrase, I just put it in God's hands, is not only descriptive, but exhaustively descriptive of what's going on? We hear things like this and we assume that they're platitudes, that they're cliches, that they're just token phrases. It's just something they say because they can't not answer the question. Because when I say something like that, I'm painting over other things going on. For me, it's never that simple. But what if for Jalen, it is just that simple? I'm going to quote David Foster Wallace again. It is not an accident that great athletes are often called naturals, because they can, in performance, be totally present. They can proceed on instinct and muscle memory and autonomic will, such that agent and action are one. The real secret behind top athletes' genius, then, may be as esoteric and obvious and dull and profound as silence itself. The real answer to the question of just what goes through a player's mind as he stands at the center of hostile crowd noise and lines up the free throw that will decide the game might well be nothing at all. How can they bypass the head and simply and superbly act? How, at the critical moment, can they invoke for themselves a cliche as trite as one ball at a time, or gotta concentrate here and mean it, and then do it? What he's saying here is, what if the phrases one play at a time, or keep your head in the game, or keep your eye on the ball, are not just true, but exhaustively descriptive? Is an athlete stupid or shallow because they can say something as simple as one ball at a time and actually legitimately mean it to themselves? Or is that a kind of wisdom and focus that's actually beyond the rest of us? Final quote. Maybe it's because for top athletes, cliches present themselves not as trite, but simply as true. Or perhaps not even as declarative expressions with qualities like depth or triteness or falsehood or truth, but as simple imperatives that are either useful or not, and if useful, to be invoked and obeyed, and that's all there is to it. To possess the gift of athletic genius, that's what David Foster Wallace calls it, is to interact with your sport on a level that can only be expressed in language that sounds banal and cliche and trite. Jalen speaks in Jalenisms because Jalen lives in a world of Jalenisms. A Jalenism isn't Jalen dodging the answer to a question that he has a hard time answering. A Jalenism is the truest answer that Jalen Hurts can give. It's the truest answer that there is for him. In other words, it's not so much that these athletes fail to communicate what it's like or how they do it, as it is that questions like what it's like and how do they do it are doomed from their inception because they ask the athlete to explain something in a way that is fundamentally incompatible with the way that they interact with and understand that thing. Being unable to communicate the gift of athletic genius is not a symptom of athletic genius. To interact with your sport on a level that doesn't fit neatly and nicely into phrases that we find compelling and interesting and profound, that is the gift of athletic genius. Thank you for watching.